Welcome to African American History Lesson 47. In this video, we will examine how Africa was envisioned in Harlem Renaissance poetry. What does it mean to remember a homeland you have never seen? For many Harlem Renaissance poets, Africa was more than a continent. It was a symbol of ancestral pride, historical longing, and cultural reclamation. Through verse, they reached across the Atlantic to reimagine connections severed by slavery and sustained through memory, art, and identity. During the Harlem Renaissance, a number of African American poets turned to Africa as a central motif in their work. They imagined the continent not only as a place of origin, but as a source of cultural strength and artistic inspiration. In the aftermath of enslavement, forced migration, and systemic erasure, these writers used poetry to reclaim ties to African heritage and to resist the historical dehumanization of Black identity. Africa became a poetic landscape for exploring themes of displacement, diaspora, resistance, and spiritual connection. Although interpretations of Africa varied, from romanticized visions of a lost homeland to critiques of colonialism, the desire to reconstruct a sense of historical rootedness unified much of this literary expression. Harlem Renaissance writers, artists, and scholars frequently wrestled with both connection to and detachment from Africa as they confronted the enduring legacies of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. For African Americans, descendants of people forcibly uprooted from their homelands, the question of belonging was complicated by generational distance, cultural loss, and the violence of displacement. Poetry became a means of navigating this dual consciousness, of being rooted in America, yet spiritually and imaginatively tethered to Africa. In exploring this tension, Harlem Renaissance poets framed Africa as both a symbolic homeland and a site of historical disruption, using their work to reimagine what had been violently obscured. In an era when dominant narratives depicted Africa as primitive, uncivilized, or lacking historical value, Harlem Renaissance poets used imagery to challenge and subvert these stereotypes. Through their verses, they presented Africa as a land of majesty, depth, and cultural richness. Writers such as Countee Cullen and Langston Hughes depicted African landscapes, kingdoms, and traditions not as relics of savagery but as sources of dignity and spiritual beauty. These poetic choices served to restore agency to African people and counteract the colonial gaze that had long distorted the continent's global image. For many Harlem Renaissance poets, Africa was not simply a geographic reference. Instead, it was a deeply personal symbol woven into questions of identity, memory, and heritage. Poems often reflect an inward journey, a search for meaning and belonging in the face of historical rupture. Writers like Claude McKay and Georgia Douglas Johnson used poetic reflection to express feelings of yearning, alienation, and rediscovery, situating Africa within the evolving contours of African American selfhood. In doing so, their work contributed to a broader diasporic consciousness and laid the cultural groundwork for emerging Pan-African movements that sought solidarity across the African world. Published in 1922, Heritage by Gwendolyn Bennett is a powerful meditation on ancestral memory, diasporic identity, and the spiritual pull of Africa. Writing at the height of the Harlem Renaissance, Bennett explores the emotional and cultural complexities of being African American, born in the United States, yet bound by an invisible lineage to a distant, often romanticized homeland. Through vivid sensory imagery and rhythmic verse, she conveys both the pain of historical dislocation and the longing to reclaim a sense of origin and belonging. Heritage reflects how Harlem Renaissance poets infused their work with personal reflection and collective memory, using poetry to bridge the gap between past and present, Africa and America.
I want to see the slim palm trees pulling at the clouds with little pointed fingers. I want to see lithe Negro girls etched dark against the sky while sunset lingers. I want to hear the silent sands singing to the moon before the Sphinx' still face. I want to hear the chanting around a heathen fire of a strange black race. I want to breathe the lotus flowers sighing to the stars with tendrils drinking at the Nile. I want to feel the surging of my sad people's soul hidden by a minstrel's smile.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, please follow us on the social media platforms listed on the screen.